The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Friday, the 20th day of October 2023. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical Health Cylinders. I'm Jamel Hartman. He's guest hosting once again. Rajay Denbrook and Maya Palacio will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in her news break brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Raj, how are you today, sir?
I'm pretty good, Mel. How are you?
I am okay. Oh, you know what? I'm always excited when Sir John comes on to have a conversation. So really looking forward to this. Always something new we learn, but also solutions. So looking forward to the conversation. Unlike most people, Raj, Friday is not my favorite day of the work week.
Yeah, you've said this before. Explain again why.
I enjoy what I do. I love what I do. I think as a person who, this may upset some people, business people, as a person, I don't believe in the 5-day work week, traditional work week. So for me, I love just working and doing what I love. I don't believe that we should be working 5 days a week and enjoying 2 off days from work, when those 2 off days are usually more work at home and lack of time with family. But yeah, I love getting back to it on Monday. Does that mean I don't need a break? No, it doesn't. I just mean that why can't we have a break on Tuesday and then one on Thursday?
There we go. Nah, completely agree with that. Agree with that.
Oh, you agree with me?
No, 100%. Of course. I think no. Don't make me feel like that. You made me doubt myself for a second. No, stop that.
All right, Raj, let's bring Maya in for the Daily Hour news break. Folks, we've got an extended conversation with Sir John Swan coming up. We're talking about growing Bermuda's economy. Look, Bermuda, the economy is in a very vulnerable state, many believe. So we're going to be discussing that with a person who people deem Bermuda's most successful economic premier, I guess, would be a way to describe him. So don't go anywhere. We'll bring Maya in for the Daily Hour news break now, and then we'll bring Sir John on immediately after the commercial break following that.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Greetings, Maya. How are you?
Feeling good. It's a Friday. I don't know. I'm okay with the Friday, Raj.
No, I actually fully side with Jamel on this one. And actually, I remember reading this study once. It was done on mice, and they did like this 5-day work week, 2-day weekend thing, and it showed like the 2 days, their cortisol levels went through the roof. When they got 3 days of rest, the 3-day weekend, their cortisol levels actually went down. So even like biologically, the 2-day weekend, it does nothing to allow us to rest.
I don't want people to lose sight. Like, I love what I mean, and Maya, I think all three of us, we love what we do. We love to
work. And we love to work, and we work hard. It's not a matter of not working hard.
We love to be productive, but rest and family and downtime is so important. So I think we have to find that balance. What's the guy named Ford car dealership? Some people always quote him. I don't know if it's true. They quote him with coming up with the 5-day work, 40-hour work, whatever. That was then. We've changed so many other things. Why not that, right? I don't know. Maybe Sir John has an opinion on that. He's a businessman. What you got for us today, Maya?
All right. Well, Good morning, everyone. This is the Daily Hour Newsbreak brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Starting out the news this morning, based on information received, the Bermuda Police Service and the Bermuda Customs Department, assisted by the Royal Bermuda Regiment Coast Guard, engaged in a joint operation which involved the execution of a warrant on board a visiting cargo ship. This happened on Thursday, the 19th of October, and the operation remains ongoing. So there's definitely going to be more updates coming to that story coming soon.
Yeah, that looked very intense, very intense. But one thing I will say is the Bermuda Police Service over the last 2 years, it's just been crazy how much they've interrupted. So good work on them in the community.
Yeah. Well, next up, this story is probably one that we've been waiting for a minute, but I have been talking about it extensively over the news break in the last months. But Minister Weeks welcomes the first phase of the promised island-wide CCTV project, making a significant milestone in government's commitment to, bolster safety and security across Bermuda. While the first phase will focus on the city of Hamilton, they say, and the island's central parishes, this stage is commenced in the early September and is scheduled for completion in the coming weeks. Once the system is fully implemented, more than 247 cameras will be installed, including multi-sensory, license plate recognition, pan, tilt, zoom, and varifocal cameras as well. The cameras will be supported by evidence analytics technology, allowing for capabilities including recognizing vehicle license plates.
Interesting. And I think most people would applaud it. About time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, long overdue.
Yeah.
Digicel, as well as we know, is the partner that they're using, and they'll have, responsible to supply the cameras, installing them, and providing 24/7 maintenance. And Digicel will also provide training for the Bermuda Police Service users as well. The commissioner of the police actually said this new, much improved system will be no doubt prove invaluable to the Bermuda Police Service in its ongoing efforts to ensure safety and security of all residents. And Mr. Donnelly added, and he's part of Digicel, that Digicel has extensive experience in providing CCTV solutions to governments in the Caribbean with our global CCTV partners. This system is equipped with high-resolution cameras and also night vision as well, and artificial intelligence, which will provide enhanced security and safety for Bermuda citizens and visitors alike.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
There you have it.
I mean, it's giving Panopticon a little bit, but I guess we're in 2023 and we need like the extensive surveillance, et cetera. But I'll get off my soapbox.
I'm interested to see, but
I was thinking like it's Big Brother seems invasive, but I mean,
I guess the innocent have to suffer, feel the guilty or something. I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, let's save that for another day because I think it's worth a conversation.
Yeah. We'll let it roll out. I mean, it's supposed to be coming officially in the coming weeks, and I'm interested to see what this AI technology, like what its capabilities is and what it will hold as any significance. But it's gonna be interesting when it rolls out. All right. Well, in our sports-related news, we know that today is the very start of the Pan Am Games, and just a reminder of all of our Pan Am athletes that are out there going to compete for Bermuda: athletics, cycling, sailing, swimming, and triathlon is what we have athletes in the 2023 games. While the Chief Commissioner, Julia Howley, has announced the flag bearers for the opening ceremony that did happen already. I think it was last evening in Santiago, Chile. And she said, "I am very happy to announce that Emma Harvey and Connor White have been selected as flag bearers for the Bermuda team as the opening ceremonies on Friday." Emma, who won 2 medals at the CAC Games this year, a silver and a bronze, and Connor won a bronze medal at these games. Congratulations to Emma and Connor as they lead Bermuda's flag and team in the opening ceremony. They actually did. Sorry, they actually did include a video, and we had the issue with Bermuda and the status of water. Currently, just an update on that is that was just on the watch list for compliance, so we have to get things in order by February. But the minister does believe that he'll get things in order in November for us to be back in the safe zone with water. But here is the flag of Bermuda rising at the games. And there you have it.
You know what? They're incredible. The thing I noticed more than the flags was everyone's phones up. You saw like everyone's phones out. It's just like everyone has to capture every moment. And I'm not knocking them at all. Like, that's your first time being at something like this. want to capture it. But amazing to see that.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that our athletes are, probably feeling a sense of relief. I know someone that I interviewed just was like, I didn't lose any sleep over it, but it was a bit, embarrassing and, disheartening and trying to like figure out. And as being an athlete and going to CAC games with Bermuda once, it's nothing like seeing that flag. And like, it really gives you pride. Like oftentimes we always say like, Bermuda on our back every time we play, it's all those quotes that you say, like, we're not just doing this for us, we're doing this for our country. You say it consistently. So I can't imagine if, it wasn't there. It might not seem like a huge deal to others. But I really hope the whole community just understands how much like athletes really do play with Bermuda on their mind and Bermuda in their hearts, because we're playing for the country. We want to make our country proud, our people proud. So the flag matters.
Of course the flag matters. I can't believe anybody would even suggest otherwise, or even begin to argue that. Like, I'm not, athletics is
not that flag, but that's another show. We do have Sir John on.
That's a whole nother conversation.
I
we gotta work with what God do. God say
that conversation always mixes into the whole flag,
which is fair. I get it, but come on.
You know how I am. No, point made. Like, I mean, I agree. I agree. But
listen, I want to stop singing "God Save the Queen," "God Save the King," whoever the heck it is now, as much as anybody else, right? I'm just saying, we need our flag, our current flag, at our things. We need it.
Point made. We've got Sir John coming up. What else you got, Maya?
All right, so the weather today is looking like cloudy, rain, showers, possibly heavier, and a chance of thunder, everyone. So please, just, get in a car if you can. Bring your raincoats if you can, as well. If you're on a bike, just be safe on the roads. And we have a high of 79 degrees.
You know what I'm going to ask? You putting your raincoat on today?
I didn't do it the other day, and I was stuck in a building just like watching the rain for like 2 hours. I was like,
nice MP. What's up for days of the year, Raj?
We're going straight there. I apologize. Days of the year today, I apologize, is Information Overload Day.
Oh, you just spoke about this.
Yeah, exactly. So in this day of just like access to information through technology, we're being saturated with information all the time. We don't slow down to have a deep understanding of things. So Information Overload Day is an opportunity for us to pause and really think about how we're engaging with the information that we're accessing through technology instead of skimming the surface on everything.
That's actually a very important day. It's interesting it comes on a Friday too, but Maya, I know that you actually are one to disperse so much information in so many places. Like, do you ever think like, you know what, maybe this is too much, let me hold off on a story or something?
Oh, all the time. I don't like
Go ahead.
I don't like sharing things that I don't 100% understand or know. Like, that's just, but like, I know I can't always get there to like the full 100%, but I better at least know the basics, and I better at least have sources or experts that I could reach out to on these situations or questions. So yeah, it's
How do you deal with information overload, Raj? Like, you touched on multitasking the other day. I honestly try not to. I think we grew up like people telling us, oh, you can, walk and chew gum at the same time. And, I told someone, an entrepreneur not so long ago, I said, the problem is everyone gets into business trying to make money so fast. Why don't you just focus on being very good at something, like focusing on one thing? Like, we're not taught that. We're taught be this, be that, be that. And before you know it, my mother always said to me, son, don't be a jack of all trades and a master at none.
I fully agree. So I just slow down when I'm engaging with information. And I understand that if I'm looking at like a concept, there's a body of knowledge behind that one concept. So usually I will go away and read up around it. If it's a world event, there's probably decades of historical context around that world event. So I will go away and I'll read up on it a little bit. But then what's so funny is like with influencer culture, because we've talked about that a little bit, it's become, we have this massive culture of fake it till you make it, right? So there are people who do the exact opposite. They're taking advantage of this whole mantle of the expert impression that you can create. You can give the impression that you know what you're talking about, then you really don't, and do a lot of damage. And people go along with it. And that's what gets on my nerves. They're saying the most wild thing, but you've got thousands of followers. It's like, that's the math ain't mathing on that one.
Yeah, I was exposed to understanding that when Maya and I were at the NAB show and the different types of influencers. And what was it? The mega influencer actually has less influence than the nano influencer, which is incredible. And the nano influencer would be like a Kim Kardashian, a celebrity like Jay-Z, Beyonce. Whereas the nano influencer probably has 1,000 to 10,000 followers. The reason for is nano influencers build that community connection. Those folks don't. But we've got Sir John waiting for us. Maya, thank you so much. Please get some rest on the weekend or not. Enjoy. Oh, real quickly before you go, you had a chance to see the art exhibit, right?
Yes, I did. I went.
Your experience, real quickly.
Tears. That's all I can say is tears. You will feel something. I would suggest not reading the front of the door and just walking in and then reading it after. But definitely read the excerpts that are there in it, and you're gonna feel it.
Just remind people of the dates and where they can go and view the art exhibit.
Yeah, it's in the Dockyard Museum. In the museum, the Commissioner's House in Dockyard, and you could see it. I think Monday to Friday. I think they're open until 5 p.m. But last time to go in is at 4 p.m. and it's about $18 to get in. So,
all right, and it's there until what? Man, the end of October, right?
The whole year.
Okay. See.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there we go. Maya, thank you so much. Enjoy the weekend.
You too.
All right, talk soon. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Sir John Swan. We're talking about growing Bermuda's economy.
Let's face it, life can be a little wild, but shopping doesn't have to be. I choose People's, so that whether it's a prescription that needs to be filled, a toy for my little terror, or a gift for a new addition to the family, we'll see about that. Everything's available in one convenient location. Some call it People's, I call it my one-stop shop in the city. People's, we're here for you.
Welcome to the new bulk store. Linda.
Celebrating her 70th birthday next month. Have you noticed her age is catching up with her?
Yeah. Plus, she's having a hard time getting up and around like she's used to. I would sure hate to see her fall.
At Medical House Limited, we can help make life situations easier. We have electric beds, motorized scooters, bath stools, walkers, you name it.
Mom's been real good to us. We'll get her birthday and Christmas gifts from Medical House.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dendy Town Field. Number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke. Telephone 292-3622.
Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. Roger Denbrook, I'm Jamel Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House, Lindo's, and People's Pharmacy. Folks, please do not forget to subscribe on our website, thedailyhour.com, and follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Without further ado, let's bring on, actually, Bermuda's longest serving premier. He was once tried to lead us to independence, and now a lot of people would welcome that or not. But he's known as one of the most successful businessmen and politicians in Bermuda. Please welcome, TDH, a warm welcome to former Premier of Bermuda, Sir John Swan. Morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
Welcome.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect.
Pleasure to be on your show. I've just been watching it and listened to the dialogue and the enthusiasm and the lift of spirit of people when how you talk about the subject. So I'm anxious to get on with mine because I think that what you've already said is quite a contribution, and I hope I can make an equal contribution.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I'm sure we have no doubt that you will, but let's get right into it because a lot has been happening in Bermuda, and Bermudians are very concerned about a number of things, but it seems like one of the top issues is the economy. And I just want to get, from your perspective, should Bermudians be concerned about the current state of Bermuda's economy?
Well, the answer is obviously yes. I mean, you can't ignore the fact that Bermuda over the years has accumulated substantial debt, drawn down on its pension fund. So there's a time when that will be at risk if you don't fund it. There are things that you need to do to make sure that whatever business you have, you accommodate it, whether it's housing or decent office space and the proper technology and the infrastructure that's necessary to keep Bermuda a viable financial center. The international business have done a great job of coming here and setting up their businesses and also acquiring a lot of Bermuda business. 80%, it's almost 90% of our US dollar earnings now are from companies that are not owned by Bermudians. Bermudians sold off their companies to foreigners. So there is a lot of things that need to be done. And the only way we can correct that with a GDP that can grow very much because the way the financial structure is in Bermuda, where you import a lot of help that has to send the money back home. The international people might rent or places, but the bulk of their earnings ends up back in their jurisdiction. So we have a money shortage, income shortage, people shortage, housing shortage, and infrastructure improvements that are necessary to bring Bermuda back into the flow of being a true international center. And there are new innovations that will follow that. So, but if you can accommodate people, if you can accommodate both from an office point of view and from a housing point of view, and all the services that's necessary, whether in the tourist area, whether it's cab services, whether it is services of people operating in the various industry that will make Bermuda really relevant and functional as people find it in other jurisdictions, then Bermuda loses its competitive edge.
Yeah, you quickly mentioned in that Bermuda's tourism industry is in a very bad state, right? The Royal Gazette recently reported that the Elbow Beach is in receivership. As a tourism destination, or at least what many people believe it should be, what concerns you most about Elbow Beach going in receivership, and what does this mean for other developments like maybe the Fairmont Southampton?
Well, you have the last hotel built was St. Regis and St. George's, but for how the industry is changing for entertainment, for things you go abroad and you can see hotels they're very modern and very encouraging of people to come and enjoy a good vacation. Elbow Beach is a perfect location for that. But it doesn't have it needs to be completely rebuilt, and it can't be just fixed, and that's the danger. I mean, we have the Southampton Princess. We've been tinkering around with that for a number of years, trying to figure out what to do with it. When a proposition comes up, it's the naysayers get their say, but the world is changing. We tried to put something at Morgan's Point, that didn't work. It's a litany of trial and failures as opposed to trial and successes. And I think it's because when we approach things, we keep thinking of Bermuda as Bermuda was and how people want Bermuda to be. If you do that, you end up in a position where you end up not being able to be in contemporary times with the changes that are occurring. And the end result is that you end up getting nothing done. And the end result is our tourism depends on cruise ships and not on visitors coming here and staying here. We have to look at it and say, are we going to open Bermuda up? Are we going to let Bermuda become a developed place? The world is changing. I see a world that says that countries now will be left on their own. There will be very few places that will be a part of the leaders in the world will talk about, well, let's all get together and stick together. But when it comes down to it, you can see Europe already fragmenting. United States is a fragmented country, and that's just a country that's very fragmented. Britain has become very fragmented, whether you talk about Ireland or Scotland, and parts of England. And within England itself, the country itself has become fragmented. North of England versus mid-England versus the southern part of England, different sets of circumstances. And the end result is, you see Canada having its issues and so forth. And we keep thinking about them as being powerful militarily. Well, if you don't make your people powerful, if you don't make your people feel good about your country and about what you're doing, then your military can't be powerful, because the real arms you have you can't use unless you want to blow the whole world up. So and no one's come to recognize that it's either going to be a disaster or else we're going to try to find a way to cure the problem. And now getting back to Bermuda itself, we have to look, we're sitting here in the middle of the Atlantic. We're off close to the United States. We are British territory. We have Canada further up north of us. How do we fit into the North Atlantic? Well, we used to fit in militarily wise, and that went away. I think it's going to come back, because I think Bermuda is very vulnerable. When you look at some of the things that are being done in other parts of the world, when the North Atlantic picks up and Russia's finished with its, whatever happens with Russia and Ukraine, and they start to show in the international waters of the North Atlantic, we are vulnerable as we were prior to the Second World War. What makes us think it's going to be any different? When it comes to building our infrastructure in Bermuda, I think that we have to think outside the box. For instance, if I started from St. George's, which is the eastern end of the island itself, it needs a cruise ship. You can't just keep promising people down there. And what you have to do is you have to take and open up a channel. And there are those who say, you open up the channel, you're changing things. The world is changing. You don't change with the world, you get left behind. And St. George is a good example of it. We can say, this is a UNESCO site and it's very nice. But if people don't come there and you don't have that critical mass to support it, it slowly deteriorates.
Indeed.
You come on up leaving St. George's, and I think Tucker's Point has done a great job of doing what it's done to bring tourists to Bermuda and so forth. Mid-Ocean Needs, which is the next door. That's a good example of the old and the new. Mid-Ocean Club itself, Winston Churchill and Roosevelt came out of Bermuda to try to settle war issues. It hasn't changed very much since then. What we've got to do now is recognize here's a great institution that should be a symbol of Bermuda's golfing and activity and so forth, as Tucker's Point has become. And you continue on up, and you have the Lauren, which is a brand new hotel, which is everybody brags about it and feels good about it. And as you move along on into Hamilton coming up now, and you get into parts where you could have really much levels of apartments for residents and people to stay, and you get slowly up to Hamilton itself. We built the new hospital, and that's deep in debt. And it's full because people don't get sent home because there's nowhere to send them. So the hospital becomes a way station for people as opposed to a medical facility for people. And you move yourself into Hamilton, the most attractive thing is East Broadway, a driveway, a highway that got in. But when you get into Hamilton itself, you start to realize that there is a great deterioration that's taking place. And the docks, which should have been developed a long time ago into a representation of Bermuda and what Bermuda stood for. We don't have anything that really stands for Bermuda. Think of that. We keep Bermuda's a wonderful place with a lot of pride. We got a lot of this, we got a lot of that.
It's a lot of world, they say, right?
But in reality it's not doing something. The Hamilton dock should have long been developed into a facility for a hotel, for housing, for cruise passengers and so forth. So if you had, like I said, open up the Channel and Georges. If you were to take parts of Two Rock Passage and let a decent cruise boat come into Hamilton, but also instead of having your main thoroughfare being a parking lot, really, in Hamilton, front of Bermuda, think about it. Your front of the island, the second most powerful and reinsurance and reinsurance center in the world, doesn't have a place for really people to gather except down the main, along the front street itself, instead of having it along the dock area and so forth. And the government has to work in concert with the Corporation of Hamilton. And if the Corporation of Hamilton does not do what it's supposed to do to make Bermuda work, it should get out of the way.
Yeah.
And then it comes to you can't bring cruise ships into Hamilton because somebody says, we shouldn't interrupt Two Rock Passage. Well, I mean, Two Rock Passage is some rocks that can be moved. They're under the water practically. And who's going to see them except you bring a bigger ship that is the only ones that are cruising the ocean today.
Yeah.
We can't grow. And then if you start going up south, Southampton Princess, it is not a question of.
Right, you got
yeah. So John, actually, before you go, that was actually my next question. It was actually about Southampton Princess, if I may. I mean, right before I ask my question, I mean, I'm a relatively young person, so I didn't get to experience your leadership right when I was as an adult. But one thing that I'm taking away from what you're saying is that you have this incredible posterity and this comprehensive understanding of things that I don't hear our leaders talking like this, and it's just this contrast that I'm hearing. It's quite an amazing thing to experience. But and I hope we have time for me to elaborate on what I mean by that. But in terms of Southampton Princess, so as you know, the Fairmont Southampton has still yet to begin work, despite political language being used that a deal was to close last year this time. The hotel is essential for Bermuda's tourism product. However, the Development Applications Board has confirmed its, quote, complete agreement with the assessment, conclusions, and recommendations of the department that the minister should not proceed with making a special development order for Southampton Princess. How would you advise the government to proceed from here?
Proceed, approve it. What do we have to show for it? What are we going to have in the future for our children? Why are our schools deteriorating? Why are roads deteriorating? Why? Because government has no money. We need people in here. We need activity in Bermuda. You preserve one thing and then you lose something else. And I think losing your people is more damaging than whether you overdevelop a piece of property in Southampton at the present time. The government government recognizes that it's in a perilous situation. We're moving the deck chairs around the Titanic. We're not really doing very much. The roads are a mess. Built some of the buildings that drives through town. Even government buildings themselves need care. Government needs to improve the support of the police, the healthcare system, the education system, and many other things that it needs to do. And you can't just keep fiddling. If you fiddle, you fall. And I'm not talking about political fall. I'm talking about the country's fall when our people get hurt. There are two Bermudas now. It used to be where you had a Bermuda where the economy was supported by Bermudians because they had Bermuda businesses. They had the law firms, they owned the accounting firm, they owned the communications firms, they owned the banks, they owned the insurance companies. All those now are owned by foreigners. And when they get their dividends, they take it out of Bermuda. So in the last 20 years or so, there's been the deck chairs have changed, and the Titanic is sinking, whether we like it or not. And we can play games with ourselves by being cute and don't want to be criticized because the end result is, oh, you're hurting my feelings, or I need your support. The end result is, wake up, Bermuda. We are in a perilous situation. The United States is in difficulty. They have a debt of $31 trillion. You see the Treasury now is paying 4% on treasuries. That tells me they're entering a crisis period. And they've been through those before, and those crisis periods will impact Bermuda. We have such high inflation. And the way we can get over this now is recognize that this old fashioned 60-40 that we have still hanging around, or 40-60, we've sold out all of our best products. What's left now is supermarkets, service providers, and even they own 40 or 50% or 6% by non-nationals, is we've got to unshackle ourselves. We talk about freedom. We need freedom. We need to unshackle ourselves, but at the same time have an economic policy that says when we do this, we're going to look after Bermudian by making sure that there is a proper taxing situation, a proper licensing situation, where revenues arrive, whether it's in construction, whether it's in business. And if we do that, and we need a national plan. We talk about going up and put some housing up at Tucker's Point, about Morgan's Point. What we should be saying is, what's the best thing we can do with Morgan's Point? What's the best thing we can do? For instance, at Morgan's Point, we might have to sort of let foreigners own the whole thing, build a whole community up there. We don't have the money. The Bermudians, tell me what Bermudian, except the Greens, who came from England, was in England 15, 20 years ago, came, and thank God they came. And they brought their money from England to Bermuda. But apart
Sir
from
John,
that,
if I may, because you're actually going on to my next question, if that's okay.
Please.
Yeah, sorry. So the throne speech will be delivered on November the 3rd. What do you believe we need to see regarding the government's economic policy and vision?
I've just said it. I've said it all. I mean, I've said it, that we should have a policy that simply says we've got to change the axis, we've got to change the matrix of Bermuda that first of all serves Bermudians, but also serves foreigners who give us all our revenue now, not just a piece of it, all. Because you see, Bermudians get confused. There is earning of US dollars that allows us to buy goods and services from overseas. There's Bermuda dollars in circulation that only operates in Bermuda. If we want to pay our debts back, we got to pay it in US dollars. We have such high debt now that the debt service cost is ramping up. We need to fund the pension funds and many other things that we need to do. So we need to earn more US dollars. In fact, I said to people, I won't say who I said it to, that we should just do away with the Bermuda dollar. What's the purpose of giving a full sense? You either earn the dollars, you have the dollars, or you don't. We're no longer talking about, and we've already moved foreign exchange from Bermudian can send abroad any amount of money he wants to send abroad. Sure, the banks get a nice tax on nice revenue, government gets a small revenue from it, but these are petty little pinching things. We need some big projects. We need to move the docks, for instance, down to the south side, the dock down there. Do some dredging, clean it up, put a dock down there. We should rebuild the causeway. It's the hurricane season's getting worse and worse, and it's been predicted. Sooner or later, we'll lose that causeway because we haven't done anything to preserve it. We haven't even replaced the bridge down there. Or as we've been makeshifting so long now that eventually we'll get a slam. We can't accommodate people coming into Bermuda because they might arrive on an airplane, but they can't come across the causeway. We need to really do that. So we can put the docks down there. We can have the trucks be able to come up to Hamilton, or we can put them off North Shore, below Government House. There's another spot that we could put the docks. We don't have to keep them directly in Hamilton. But we Bermudians are not going to do it. All the Bermudians that have money, I can tell you now, you know where the money is? Overseas. The money people, Bermudian money people, the banks announced the other day that their deposits are down. Why? Because Bermudians are sending their money. They're losing faith in Bermuda. They're losing faith in the fact they keep them in money in Bermuda dollars, and they might not one day wake up one of these days and see Bermuda dollars they value. And before that happens, they're dumping their money overseas. All these things, everybody's being so polite and so nice. The end result is, guess what's happened? We're all going to get royally screwed in the process. You Bermudians, wake up. You want to keep smiling the roses? Tell government that we need to have major changes. Support the government making major changes. Support. Don't get caught into people trying to preserve Bermuda historically, because there is no historical Bermuda. If it is, it's dead Bermuda. And you want that? We need to improve our transportation systems. You talk about the cab services. We keep buying buses because we're ducking the issue of transportation in terms of all new innovations that are happening overseas. We're now talking about putting in CCTV cameras. Christ, we waited for how long to put them in? And they're still not in yet, by the way. You know, something that we keep saying we got a labor shortage, but yet at the same time, the technology that's available. There are so many things that we can do. But, you know, unfortunately, because of our shortage, we have less than 1%. We have less than birth rate even is 2.1. We're down now to about 1, if not below 1. In other words, for every 2 people born, you produce 1 child. In other words, the female is the only one that produces a child, the male doesn't. So the end result is you have a very rapid fall off in the population. And when you see, every time I see people dying, the amount of births is minor. And what they give you is a false information, because they give you the amount of births in Bermuda as opposed to birth of Bermudians. And even with Bermudians marrying foreigners, but if you look at the Bermuda, and particularly the Black community, which is mainly Bermuda, as opposed to white community who marries more foreigners, the Black population is shrinking even faster.
Yep.
And they're becoming poor.
Yeah.
Much poor.
Yeah. I just want to say, I mean, the message is coming through. Just people love listening, and I think you said quite a few things, but I'm going to sum it up. You know, some years ago, people were very upset about the airport being per se given to Canadians and so on. And we had this conversation just this week about the Morgan's Point. You know, what to do with that. And you know, I'm a believer we need to lease it. We don't have the money to do this, so we probably need to lease or sell off.
No, we don't have the brains either, by the way. To be honest, because the brainy people have already in the business, in the international business, been subsumed by the international business. That's where they are, making great money and keeping very quiet. You don't hear from them. Mm-hmm. That's why the politics is going to hell, because they don't allow Bermudians. Or don't allow, only Bermudians can get involved. They don't allow their employees to get involved with politics. And, you know, in the last 20, 25 years, all our business now of any significance is now owned by foreigners. Mm. So which means the policy is, where do you get your people from? Civil servants can't be involved. Up to 30 years of age, people are just trying to get an education, trying to make it. Who's left? There's nobody left. And so politicians on both sides, the business community has really, in a sense, taken over Bermuda, taken over Bermuda, and they have screwed Bermuda, because it is now saying, I will dictate your politics by depriving you of people and working for me, because I'm afraid if somebody in my business says something that's not liked, the government, whether it's OBA or the PLP, don't like it. It might affect my work permit, or it might affect something I want to get done. And so fear has set in because of the way we approach politics on a racial basis, on a social basis, and they realize the fact that they are now the big economic power. But the end result is we need to have people that have brain power working for these companies somehow or the other involved up, or else we change the way we do politics. We're not a Britain or Canada. We're a little Bermuda that has a great opportunity to do something, but we keep preserving the past and letting others now preserve the past as though it can function for the future. It can't work.
Yes, Sir John. Yeah, Raj.
Yeah, Sir John, I'm really grateful that you've sort of identified this tension between people trying to hold on to the past and the progress that we have to achieve right now. Like the 21st century is barreling down on us, where we have unprecedented challenges that we are going to have to address, but we're not changing how we go about things, and we're not changing to the fact that the world is evolving fundamentally. So it's forcing us to shift how we go about being a people on the global stage as well, fundamentally. But with that in mind, my next question to you is, how important is immigration going to be in maintaining and growing our economy?
Well, immigration is just a tool. It's really in a sense. Instead of setting a goal of saying you'll bring 10,000 people to Bermuda, which is a bit of a hoax that scares the hell out of every Bermudian, what we should be saying is we have a GDP of 6 billion. It used to be at one stage 6.6 billion. During the economic crisis, it fell down to 6 billion and we lost 6,000 people. We have never really recovered because slowly as technology and outsourcing occurs, more people are selling and look like they're setting up business in Bermuda, but they're outsourcing. So technology slowly is taking over and supplementing the demand for human resources. And we have real technical people coming to Bermuda, but a lot of the work is being done elsewhere. Immigration should be looking at it and saying, what does government want to achieve? If government wants to, let's say it wants to take its GDP from 6 billion to 7 billion, and at the same time, the Minister of Finance should be looking at saying, how I can help the Bermudian to benefit from this. So there is a synergistic relationship between the economic growth of Bermuda and looking after its people. What we've had is a profound growth in Bermuda, but it's been a non-Bermudian growth or external growth that gives you the idea that Bermuda is doing this and Bermuda is doing that. But there's no benefits really accruing back to the Bermudian except for those who obviously have good education and are more privileged in that aspect and can get jobs in these places. But then even they are faced with inflation and everything else, and their social needs. If I'm here as a foreigner working in Bermuda, I don't have the social needs that a Bermudian has. So it's much more expensive for Bermudian. And then we import people from third world countries, whether the Philippines, used to be Portugal. Portugal is no longer third world, but particularly Azores is no longer a third world country. You will see less and less Azoreans coming to Bermuda. I don't know where we get it. And then you will see more people coming from Central America. You'll see more people coming, and even what people we have from the Philippines. But they send their money back home. So that doesn't help us because the Bermudian has to face the expenses. The foreigner, he lives here in a very controlled, because his family, because we don't allow these people to bring their families to Bermuda. So he sends his money, educates his children. So his children get educated. He builds a house at home. The Bermudian here can borrow money from the bank, having difficulty getting his kids educated. So the people working here, children end up better off and better educated. They end up better off financially when they finally return home. They've got a house or two paid for by the Bermudian economy. And the Bermudian is still trying to figure out, where do I fit in terms of and it's so much harder now to get a house, and you can't borrow money from the bank unless to convince the bank that your income takes care of your expenses, and then how much money you have left over after your expenses, then that's what you allow it to borrow. That's why you don't see Bermudians buying houses and they're selling them. And they're moving to the Azores, they're moving to England, and they're moving to other places. And what I see happening, if we're not careful, is one day we'll wake up and average poor Bermudian, he is trying to figure out where he's going to go somewhere else rather than be in Bermuda, because it's not his fault. It's the way we've allowed our economy to be structured. We keep, he doesn't want to work. He does this and that. You created an attitude and a format that says you really are not really a part of Bermuda anymore. And your time is running out on you. It's almost like a death sentence, and I don't like that. I'm a person who believes in God. And in God, I love my people. I love my country. I want my country to be successful. But you can't be successful if you're only interested in preserving yourself and you operate out of fear. Fear is the most dangerous thing you can have. And too many Bermudians now are operating and they're quietly, they can't pay the health insurance, they can't pay the medical requirements, they're cutting back on what decent food they eat. We have to face the reality. But everybody's afraid to say anything because you might offend somebody or you might be taking political sides. Everyone knows I don't have any political sides. I don't have any fear. Why should I? I'm 88 years old. What are you going to do to me? Shoot me. Most of my friends I'm burying every day. I was in a funeral yesterday, and I was supposed to be at 2 funerals at the same time yesterday. 2 of my good friends. I mean, it's piling up on me very fast. So I am only interested in one thing. When I leave this country, and I no longer am physically around, I'll always be around, I'll always be with you. My spirit won't leave me. But I want to see at least we've made some good decisions for our people and for Bermuda, not for just any one sector of the community, but overall. And we're not doing it now at all. We're doing less and less and less.
I'm very grateful for the level of clarity and perspective that you're bringing to this conversation, Sir John. And I know we're having a lot of comments on the side where people are saying they're just very grateful for what you're saying, because this is how people have been feeling for quite some time. But you do not hear our leaders affirming these very obvious things. Politics has, in my opinion, politics has become this more of a game where you're constantly trying to manage people's perspectives and manipulate their perspectives instead of doing the very simple thing of affirming their very obvious experiences. The level of emotional intelligence and humility that we require in leadership, you're modeling in this conversation. So as someone who has had their frustration, especially as a young person, being in Bermuda, who is contemplating leaving for the exact things you have described, and I've spoken to leaders about this, and I've had my concerns and my perspective dismissed, but here I have an elder statesman affirming everything that I'm feeling. So, Sir John, I'm just saying thank you, because I think the things that you're saying and how you're saying them as an elder statesman is very important, and it's clearly impacting the people who are watching. And you were very obvious in saying how stratified our economy is, and this contrast between foreigners who come in and participate in the economy and do well, but for locals, for many locals, it's a contrasting experience. And just saying thank you very much for articulating and affirming that experience, because some people out here they want to gaslight you and make you feel like you're going crazy instead of just being honest with you. My next question, sir, is: if the 15% global tax rate is enforced for companies, what impact do you think it will have on the international business sector in Bermuda?
I think that the government will work. I think this is a critical thing for Bermuda. And I think that the Premier is aware of it. I think that if we screw this one up, then we really don't have any tourists and we don't have any international business at the level that we have now. I think that we will work in concert with the international business to to satisfy international requirements. Keep in mind, this is an international requirement, and you can't do business with Europe unless you fulfill their requirements, like we do with Solvency II and substance requirements. We've managed to sort of get ourselves back on the good list for Solvency II. We insist on meeting the requirements for substance, which means the fact that companies in Bermuda doing major business should also have a presence, so there's not just a plaque on the side or a wall or a filing cabinet. And I think that in this tax thing, I think that the Premier has done the right thing by hiring somebody of expertise to work with the international business, because it is a taxing issue, so that we can come up with something that they can live with and we can live with. This is not going to be a revenue benefit to us. It is something that we will have to offset it by how we adjust the revenue we already get. Because we have an agreement with the international business that we would not change anymore. We would not introduce income tax up to 2035. That's was an agreement that's been agreed upon. So when they come here, they know that it exists. And you start violating these things. We the other day put an extra tax on the payroll tax, and it was a hell of a hoo-ha about it by the international business, because you see these businesses operating here, but their shareholders are not here. Their shareholders are overseas. The shareholders don't really care about Bermuda. They only care about the money they make. And if you get them feeling as though that, Bermuda can change its tax system anytime it wants to, when it wants to, and there are no consequences, they simply say, well, what's the next destination I can get a tax? And there are destinations that will offer something different. So we're really competing with the rest of the world in terms of how we can position ourselves. That's why we've got to think outside the box and start doing some things to grow our economy. And with AI around now, and that's coming on fast. It's been here for a while, but it's really picking up. A lot of the things that are done by humans will either be done faster, if not be done in another way, and we might not need as much human resource as we did. I mean, if you look at Bermuda insurance or reinsurance business, you go back to the late 80s, early 90s, it was very manpower intensive, Slowly we start to outsource to Bangalore in India. We start to outsource to Sterling in Scotland, tech, and different centers. We start to do things. Nowadays, these companies' payrolls and various other accounting systems can all be done overseas. They don't have to be done in Bermuda. So, and AI is just going to consolidate and speed up and communications can speed up more. You see where Microsoft is bringing up cable from Europe to Bermuda and then to the United States. What they're going to find out is the type of service they can offer that allows them then to stay current with what's taking place. So we have to recognize that unless we continue, and every now and then you have an opportunity, which we had back in the 80s when we built the insurance and reinsurance. And the next thing, we can't look at tech, fintech, and tech. The tech systems kind of Bermuda. They are facilitators of business. They don't create great wealth and leading wealth on a platform in Bermuda because they're tied into overseas activities and so forth. The insurance reason why the insurance industry, it's not the insurance industry, it's the reinsurance industry that says the fact that we've got a strong base for reinsurance, and the regulatory system is so strong that they need to be, and because they need to get coverage, they can operate from a platform of Bermuda. That's an unusual. If we had banking, we would not be in the comfortable position we are today as banks pull back and consolidate their positions and so forth. So don't think that we are in a generalized position. We were in a unique position. We've had it, we've enjoyed it, but we now have to still expand our business. If we have to have more tourism as the Caribbean gets warmer and hotter and everything else, and maybe even unsafe, we have to make sure we have safety. We have to make sure we have sensitivity about when people come here. But more importantly is we have to make sure that in the process that we accommodate what we can do and make the most of it. And if we get them caught up into almost tribalism and fragmentation and thinking, oh, we're going to preserve Bermuda like it was yesterday. I mean, I fought so hard. When I first started the treaty process back in '82 when I became Premier, Front Street was against me doing it. They said, that's our business, not your business. That's our government's business. Front Street was against me doing it. They fought very hard. I had the Royal Gazette editor against me doing it, supporting the bankers who said, and the law firms saying, we have friends in Washington. If I had listened to them, I had to tell them, get out of the way, I'm going to do this. Now I'm saying to people, some of you need, when I try to build this building I'm sitting in right here now, there were those who said, oh no, a 10-story building, it's going to destroy Bermuda, it's going to do this and do that. Okay, we built it. There are still some people have the reservation. But I think you need a statement coming into Hamilton that Bermuda was on the move. Unfortunately, nobody followed through with it except Pitts Bay Road, the west. So what happened? We moved Hamilton from Hamilton. You go from Bermudiana Road going west. That's where New Hamilton is. But you've left where our young people and where our economy and our trade and our activity. And I'm saying, let's get it, some of it back down to Hamilton. And the way to do that is get the docks out of Hamilton, put them where they're supposed to be, they're not supposed to be in Hamilton, build up the dock area, improve Hamilton itself. And I think you'll start seeing the world looking at us differently. Get Southampton Princess open. And I'm not hung up about orders and all this type of stuff. At the end of the day, government should put some guidelines in terms of if they don't build them, then the property must be reserved as it is. But at the same time, give them their permission. Let the hotel itself open because nobody's going to finance that hotel. And because all we're going to do now, you know what we're going to do now? We're going to switch. We don't have to do Southampton Princess because we can do Apple Beach. Well, Apple Beach is a long way from getting done because they're still going to face the same problems, Apple Beach, as everybody faced with Southampton Princess. So, and I have no extra ground, I have no vested interest. All I know is if we don't do something, and Morgan's point, set up a commission or set up a body, and now I'm talking about government body, set up a private sector body that's given a mandate, go out and find a corporation that wants to, and government give them the land.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not getting anything out of it anyhow, we're just letting it deteriorate.
Just sitting there.
Give them the land and say, look, if you come in here and build something and allow us to get some revenue from it as government that we can look after our people, it's better than sitting on. What we're sitting on is dead assets that had died, contributing nothing, and is not serving the usefulness that our assets were supposed to serve. When you have assets like Front Street has now and Hamilton has now that are not occupied, you can have the building, but if you don't have the revenue from the building, your asset isn't worth anything. You're only based on the value of occupancy, not based on the fact that you have some bricks and mortar, a piece of land, a nice location in Hamilton. That is not worth it. It's the revenue you get from it. And that's what we're going to get in our head. And those people who feel as though we should preserve things as we have. I remember talking to somebody just the other day and they were bragging because they have their own 10 or 8 or 10 acres of land, and they're saying, I'm preserving this for my grandchildren. I said, and what do you think about this? Oh no, I just like that to stay. If they want to build it, but if I'm not going to prepare to support anything other than, I said, so your grandchildren, you think they'll come back to Bermuda and they get the education, obviously educated, that is so conflicted with issues that don't make them feel comfortable. And the only reason why your grandchildren will come back is because they marry a foreigner who can fit in, and he can be a veterinarian or he can be a dentist or he can be a doctor. And he can do better here than he can do in South Africa, or he can do better here than he can do in Australia. These are economic decisions they're making. But I said, you want to preserve old Bermuda, but you don't want to make new Bermuda good for everybody. I said, I can't embrace your thinking. I said, you haven't crawled out the past. And what I've learned to do is be very frank with people. Some people get upset with it. I might turn my back and say that SOB or whatever they want to call it. Doesn't matter. The fact is, I am not letting up on anybody. And I've told the business community the same thing about their attitude about politics. You can have now raped the country from human natural resources and then turn around and say, we want this, we want that. And blame it on the PLP. It's not the PLP's fault. It's not the OBA's fault. It's the way Bermuda has evolved. And evolved in a sense, the PLP can only get the candidates that are available. The OBA can only get the candidates left over. So we get the leftovers.
Yep.
And we expect to take and have the bigger thinkers. It can't work.
Sir John, we did have last year, I think a year to the date today, we did have one of those people that you speak of that comes from the IB sector that was running for leadership of the country via the PLP and basically was politically beaten, I guess would be a correct term, to leadership. So we did have one, but I think your point is very well said, because I think that is the difference in what we see today. It's like the best and brightest are not politically involved for whatever reason. Now, you have answered most of the questions people had in the audience. We had Mark Arthur C. Phillips asking, what's a third pillar that we could consider? I don't know if you want to go into more detail on that. We did have also Michael Robinson. He says, for the former premier, does he feel any responsibility for Bermuda's predicament due to the profound effect that change from a tourist-based economy to an international business-based economy happened under his watch? Did you want to touch on either of those?
Yeah, good to. Let's take the second one first. When I came to office, the tourism was dead. Remember the strike, 1981 strike? I was not in office at the time, and the Princess Hotel was on decline. Alba Beach was on decline, and I looked at it, the cost, and people said the cost of Bermuda was too high then to build. They also said the cost of coming to Bermuda was very high, and I was faced with a predicament. How do I get Bermuda out of this mess? And we didn't have much international business. So I pursued the international business with the tax treaty. You could not have ramped up tourism the way the international business was ramped up. And we ramped it up, and with one stage, people said, enough's enough, we've got enough business in Bermuda. We were considered the wealthiest country. By 1995, we were considered to be the wealthiest country in the world. And we had 6,500 people. I mean, 66,000 people. No, we had 66,000 population. We had a GDP of 6.6 billion. And we were sailing, we were doing well. But the tourism, the Caribbean was ramping up their tourism. They were putting in air conditioning. The airlines that come to Bermuda expenses. When an airline leaves New York, come to Bermuda, has taken enough fuel to get back. If an airline goes down to Jamaica, it flies down the coast of the United States to Florida, across, and into Jamaica. It only takes the fuel it needs. So the cost of a ticket is far less because it doesn't have to lift that fuel up, bring it up over, and then take it back. And every time a plane takes off that much loaded fuel, it's burning a lot of fuel in the process. So tickets to the Caribbean were cheaper than tickets to Bermuda, believe it or not. It wasn't a question of distance. I mean, we were 700, 800 miles. They were 1,000, 1,200 miles. It was the cost of fuel lifting and together with the passengers and everything else. And so tickets tend to be way out of proportion. And then the cruise industry came along, was growing. Started to really grow at this particular time. And people more or less taking their cruises and so forth. And we were all Bermuda, living off of people coming here, and whether it was the college kids, and then they wrecked Alba Beach so much, Alba Beach that we can't take it anymore. And so things, so the industry itself changed. And Bermuda changed. We got the international business. We Bermudians weren't putting capital into Bermuda. I mean, hotels, whether it was owned by Ludwig or whether it was owned by the Sunderbands that owned the Sinasta Beach, or whether it was the Marriott, Bill Marriott that owned Castle Harbor. And these people looked at it, and I know because I had personal talks with these people. We were all part of an organization, overseas organization called YPO. So I was able to have an intimate talk with them. They lost faith in Bermuda because it was a very rigid place. People objected to every time you want to do something, people got all uptight about it and got very shaky. The same process we're going through right now is the same process people would go through. It was always, whether it was the National Trust or the Audubon Society or some society that historically came out of old Bermuda, let's be honest about it. And even though they took some young people in, they conditioned them to think the same way. Even when they came to this building, I had a black chap who was chairman of National Trust, who fought very hard because they made him chairman. He was following his master's voice and objecting to us by putting a building up.
So John, I don't know if you've heard of a group they're called Bermuda Youth Connect. They're a thriving group of young people in Bermuda right now who are making some waves in the political conversations. Well, Teray Toll, who's part of that group, she says, she's asking, were we thriving back then because policy bended to the will of the wealthy elites, or because everyone was thriving?
Everyone was what?
She's asking, were we thriving then because policy bended to the will of the elites, or because everyone was thriving?
Everyone, I didn't get the last word.
Was everyone thriving? So she's basically saying, back when you say things were thriving, Bermuda had a thriving economy, is it because of the wealthy elites were thriving, or was every person in Bermuda thriving?
Well, I think that there were more people thriving in those days. Those days, you had, for instance, you had a lot of young people in business. You had a lot of Bermudans. The Black community was very active in business, had several businesses out there, construction business, electrical business, all sorts of businesses, and shops and so forth. Today, you're basically in Hamilton, you have basically two major Black businesses. As I can recall, is People's Pharmacy and Brown & Co. Can you tell me any other one? In other words, all the others have fallen off the peg. And the end result is, when we have our children are working, and the doctors' children are working for these international business, but they really are not in the business such itself. So we've given up on entrepreneurship, basically, and people can talk, well, we have this group talking about this group, but the facts are the facts. The numbers aren't there to demonstrate that we are really in the mainstream anymore from the Black community. And by the way, the white community is not in the mainstream anymore because they've sold their business off, whether it was Fire Marine or Argus, or whether it was the accounting firms or the law firms. They're all now owned by foreigners. There's maybe some Bermuda partners, but they no longer control the wealth and put the wealth back into Bermuda. There has been a major change in the process. Now, so we blame it on the tourist business. I blame it on some decisions that have been made for greed or for money or for whatever reasons that has allowed the whole economy itself to slip into disarray over the last 30, 40 years. Maybe a party in my administration, I don't absolve myself from some of the blame. I have to take some of the blame. We built 21 projects to try to restructure Bermuda and build up Bermuda ready for the 21st century. And in the process, maybe we neglected to pay attention to something. So, but I don't even see that being done today. I mean, I've been out of office now since 1995. So you can see I'm coming up now for 30 years. I haven't seen any major projects being done to even begin to approach that number that I was there for 13 years. So
St. Regis and the airport, they would probably say were the two major projects.
These were private sector projects. St. Regis and the airport was of necessity, and we still owe a lot of money on the airport. It's like the hospital. We built the hospital. In fact, we owe a lot more money on the hospital than we did when we built it. Or it's not been a viable proposition because it's been, I would say, it's been badly managed, to be quite frank with you. And it's some tough decisions from the minister down through the government down through the administration decide to make it a way home as opposed to being a thorough operating hospital. Because it's not politics to offend people, but people should not be staying in the hospital year after year or week after month, month after month, when in actual fact they should be either back home again or in some other place that is not so costly to run. Hospitals always around the world are very costly to run. But the administration dictates, and the administration is appointed by the government. The government probably has an attitude that, don't want to offend either the voter or don't want to offend the community, and therefore there's a standoff that we have. We've got schools closing. Maybe we can turn our schools, some of these closed schools, into rest homes for people. But then again, it costs money to do that, to fix it up and everything else. And we don't have the money, be honest about it. We're tinkering, but we don't have the money. We have $3.5 billion debt. And then we take the pension fund, and you take the guarantees, you take the airport debt, and you take the hospital debt and everything else. You're probably talking about $5 billion or $5.5 billion. You have to service that debt before you can begin to sort of provide service for other people. So you'll be spending more money on servicing debt than you help the average working class person.
Correct. And so that brings us to this. People are struggling. People are looking for ways out. What I get from, I'm just going to go back to Teray as far as she, having an issue with the concept of thriving Bermuda. I think for me, and many Black people are courageous to say this now, that desegregation was the worst thing for Black people, because back then you had so many Black people that had no choice but to be entrepreneurs, right? Not everyone agrees with that. But I think what I'm gathering from the conversation, the response from Sir John, is that people shifted their focus to becoming employees. That whole labor shift, it was all about the employee. And it became safer to go and work for people than it did to take the risk and have the courage to go and create your own company and work for your own company, which is why, as Sir John just said, we only have two major business owners in the city of Hamilton, which is People's Pharmacy and the Brown & Co. Companies right there. So I actually get what you mean. Thriving, I think what he's saying is thriving. Blacks are not thriving in the entrepreneur space. Now, why is that? Is it that we're not supporting each other? That crab in a bucket mentality we have. We legit think of the media, right? We only have 2 Black-owned media companies in Bermuda. Everyone else is just scattered away, but is dominated by white, or some may say non-Bermudians, right? We don't know. I get what he means by that, Teray. I just want to tell you that we haven't created an industry. I said this the other day. I said, we go through this little space where we tell our children we go to school, get an education. School is a business to me, by the way. That's my personal perspective. And then we come back and we work for people. But why aren't we creating industry? Why aren't we creating spaces? We were at the forefront of industry previously. We were building things. So no, I think we were thriving more back then as Black people, even though the challenges from a racial perspective were more. Yes, we were thriving. We built things, not just live. We didn't create liabilities for ourselves. We created assets that we would be able to think. The idea we have now is, buy a house, that's an asset. A house is not an asset unless you're making money off it. Businesses give you assets and so on. So, Sir John, my final question to you is, in the state that we're in, what advice would you give to Bermudians? What role do we play in improving the economy?
Hold on and hope you enjoy the ride, because you don't have much to show for it, and you're seeing less and less to show for it. I think that we have to really try to sort of get our young people back into focus on really, in a sense, what Bermuda really is. I can't do this in one show. This is something that needs to be talked about over and over again, because we would have to change the attitude and how we educate our young people. We're not educating them like we educated them back in the 50s and 60s. That hasn't changed very much. In other words, are we optimizing their innate interests, or are we optimizing our desire to get results because we compete with the other private sector versus the public sector? Recognizing that everybody can get an education, go off to school. How how do they fit in? Create jobs that's possible. I think government try to sort of do that with its work program, encouraging people to go into business, go into enterprise. They would give them some support. I don't know what the results are. Nobody publishes those results as to, they keep talking about they're doing it, but they don't talk about what the results are. They're spending public money on it. Where is that money going? Is it because they give people out contracts for government and therefore they engage these same people to do government jobs? And are they being efficient? I don't know. I mean, there are hundreds of questions that needs to be, and when people start feeling as though there's some accountability, and when you get out of the accountability area, you therefore don't understand really what's going on. All you know is this, you hear the noise, you don't know where it's coming from, and if you know where it's coming from, you don't know what it means. And therefore what you do is you just simply get used to the noise. And we've gotten so used to now the noise that we don't really, in a sense, get the information, because the information is too noisy to us to comprehend. We need to slow down, stop, engage into the reality of what Bermuda is, figure out what is it that needs to be done. It's not, I always say, it's not what I want, but what I need, as opposed to what. This is what we need to do to look after our people and look after Bermuda, and whether it's foreigners or whether it's locals, that will help Bermuda to work but serve the greater good. What we've done now is, like the United States, everything is done to serve the lesser group by the greater group. In other words, the wealthier get wealthier and the poor get poor. The poor hurt and the wealthier complain. They sit in Congress, they sit in board meetings and complain about what the union should do and what poor people should do to continue to service them and put money in their pockets. And the end result is, in our Western civilization, is on the decline, because it was never intended that we should be so divided. The union, as the saying is, together we stand, divided we fall. This is exactly what's happening. We are falling. We are falling in the world as far as Western democracies and Western capitalism. We're falling over each other because at the same time, we know that we have to do something to survive. And so the fittest are doing everything and taking everything to survive with. If you want to have a conversation, they will prepare to have a conversation when it suits them to have the conversation about what it serves them, as opposed to having a conversation about what serves the greater good. And now that we have an economy that is governed and controlled by the non-Bermudian, and I don't blame the non-Bermudian, I blame the Bermudian not for letting it happen, but not figuring out when it did happen as to what the Bermudian could benefit from it, as opposed to, I once said, people said, John Swan, how do you manage to do what you do? I said, first of all, I was a very religious person when I was a young person. I went to Sunday school. I learned to respect God, very much God, not any particular, but God, in an energy sense, not a person. And I learned to listen to him, what he said to me all the time. I've quoted him many, many times. And I found out that everything that I need is right in front of me. It is there. But you have to learn to listen. And when you learn to listen, you listen to learn. And when you learn, you have to apply yourself accordingly. What you have people now is getting on talk shows, making a lot of noise, but they're not really listening. And when they do it, I scored a point. It's not about scoring points. It's about making contributions that improve the overall good. And praising others, get off your own ego and help to lift up others in the process. But I can tell you, there are people out there right now figuring out, how can I get mine? I'm not worried about somebody else. And when you do that, you lose a fundamental principle. And that is, we are our brother's keepers. If not our brother, when your enemy becomes your friend and your friend becomes your enemy, you know the end is near. So before the end comes, let us do something to prevent it from happening.
Sir John, it's always a pleasure. And I look forward to the next conversation, because if it's one thing, every time we come, it's a completely different conversation, but with the same overall goal and purpose. It's appreciated that you make time to engage with our audience live. Thank you so much for always making the time, and the information that you share is not something that I believe can just help us today, but 20 years from now, if we all come together and just take bits and pieces of the information that you're sharing, I really believe Bermuda could be in a better space. So thank you for, again, joining us, and we look forward to the next conversation with you.
I love your show. It's beautiful. You know why? Because it has the intellectual depth and search that is so important if you want to solve problems. So you've got the critical thinking and its potential application to what it pertains to Bermuda. So I really thank you, both of you, for having sort of allowed me to share my thoughts with you. I don't say I'm right all the time, but I hope it stimulates enough to make other people feel as though they too should make those type of contributions. And don't be afraid if you get something wrong. At least because if you do, it is better than doing nothing.
Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful day, Sir John.
Pleasure. Take care. Good.
Thank you. Sir John Swan, folks, if you appreciated the conversation with Sir John this morning, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. We're going to take a final break. Raj has been taking a lot of notes, so I'm pretty sure the wrap up is going to be intense. Again, thanks again to Sir John, and folks, don't forget to like, love, share. We'll be back after this, and we'll do the daily play as well. Stick with us.
Hi, welcome to ER Fisheries. I'm Jalen Steed, store manager and trained chef, and I'm here to help you with all of your food needs. Let's talk about why you should come and check out ER Fisheries. We offer the widest range of specialty meats and seafood items at a price point that will absolutely fit your budget. As a chef, I'm able to answer all of your food questions, help you come up with meal ideas, and generally guide you in the right direction. You'll get a custom shopping experience unlike any other food store in Bermuda, where we'll cater to your needs and provide you with excellent customer service. Where else can you get quality cooking advice and quality products? I look forward to helping you with all your meal ideas.
Again to Sir John for joining us today. Really appreciate him giving us the time and engaging with the audience. I saw a lot of comments and questions, and I'm just like, he was almost like he could see what people were asking and answering a lot of questions before they came up. Karen Magnum mentioned the Titanic, and he actually said that right after that. It was fascinating. But thanks again to the BAC group of companies, Medical House, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy for ensuring we can do this with you on a daily basis. And as Maya Palacio is saying, folks, please like and share this conversation so that we can bring these topics to this space. Like, the more you like and share these conversations, the more people who will have access. We know how algorithms work, so please get it out there. Thank you, Teray. Honestly, it's time for BYC to get in the space to conduct conversations with Sir John as well, because your question was very relevant. It was extremely relevant. I'm not even sure, and I'm not being disrespectful, you were born when he was Premier, right? Because he was Premier 30 years ago. I'm not quite sure you're there. So I don't know if you understood the challenges we had while he was leader and the benefits. But I thought your question was valid, because what did a thriving Bermuda look like? For me, a thriving Bermuda meant more Black entrepreneurs, more Black people creating and owning industry. We don't see that anymore. We see the little pathway of basically go to school, get a degree, and you go and work for someone. I think that's a problem within our community. All right. That's time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Bermuda Trivia, now available at stores throughout Bermuda. Follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. Raj, are you ready?
More or less.
All right, here we go. This is interesting. I don't know the answer to this, and I haven't looked at it. How many months of the year have 31 days in them?
You have said January. Actually, no. I can't. I tried to learn the month song in P3 and I couldn't learn it, and it scarred me for the rest of my life. So I'm not even going to try. My children know.
Can you
I don't-
call your children?
I mean, but there's not enough time.
Oh. Well, Rosalind Famous says 8. That is incorrect. So it's January, March. Does April have that? May, July, August, October, December. Anyway, the answer is 7. My apologies.
All right.
Yeah, the answer is 7. It is.
Why with the facts as usual?
Sherilyn Johnson got it. It's 7. It's 7. Someone said 4. A couple people said 4. No, it's more than 4. I did not know the answer to that, folks. Let's wrap it up, Raj. I saw you taking a lot of notes. Impressive conversation with Sir John. We have Charles H. Jeffs II. He says Sir John is the most accessible leader in Bermuda. One of the big takeaways for me is the stressing the importance of listening, something all of us as leaders need to do more of. Sean DeShield says, the truth is an offense, but not a sin. Sir John speaks the truth, so Bermuda needs to wake up as our economic future isn't looking bright. So, yeah, final thoughts.
Jamal, where do you even start? I mean, the amount that he shared, the perspectives that he shared on so many different things. But in terms of the conversation and the relevancy of the conversation we were having with him, in terms of our economic integrity, what he said, hang on for the ride. I mean, that was a very salient way to sum it up. But I mean, that's a good way to sum it up. We are in some uncharted territory. These waters are very, very choppy. And I think to Ray's question as well. So again, back in the 90s, I was 0 to 10, right? So I didn't have any sort of sophisticated awareness of things economically or politically. But one thing I do have is an intuitive sense of what the 90s was like. And I remember in the 90s, things were a lot more stable, things were a lot more dynamic, there was a lot more community, things were a lot more uplifted. And I remember that back in the 90s. There were its issues, but it wasn't as bleak as today, right? And I also remember, my people in my parents' generation, they would always say, you can lose a job one day and have 2 jobs the next day, right? It was a completely different experience back then. So I would say that we were thriving in a lot of ways, in ways that we're not anymore. And in order for us to get to that space, I think Sir John said it really well. We have to grapple with who we are as a people. These aren't just superficial economic or political issues. We have fundamentally changed in how it is we are Bermuda, but we have not caught up in our mindsets or in our or in our policy and how it is we go about sort of evolving with this change while still, preserving the core of who we are as Bermudians. We can't lose that. But the world is changing and we're not exactly changing with it. And, he made this incredible point about the political brain drain. I've never heard anybody describe it in those terms, but he's completely correct. Our political landscape is suffering from the fact that we are getting the quote unquote leftovers. We are, because of this culture of fear. And I'm so grateful that he spoke to this word fear, because that's what we have in Bermuda in a lot of ways right now. Fear of economic instability, right? I can speak to that myself right now. I lost my job suddenly back in August. Things are kind of insane for me right now. There isn't a sense of trust between Bermudians like there used to be. There isn't a sense of collectivism. There isn't a sense of community. But we have to return to that place in order to secure ourselves. And then the level of emotional intelligence that he was speaking with. I can't remember the last time I've heard a leader just affirm people's obvious experiences. We've gotten spin and deflection for a really long time. We have gotten the game of politics. What we have not gotten, and this may ruffle some feathers, what we have not gotten is leadership. Leadership. There is a difference between politics and leadership. What Sir John just demonstrated to me was leadership. You can't lead a people without affirming your people. You can't lead a people by playing games with people every 2 seconds. And that's why Bermudians feel so disconnected and so ill represented by our political structures right now, and why they're so disaffected. We don't trust our political institutions. I don't. And I've been very transparent. I am a Progressive Labor Party member. I believe in the core of the party. I believe in what that party represents. However, where we're at in the practice of politics in this country leaves so much to be desired, and is causing people to disengage in a very dangerous way. And we are starting to see the consequences of that locally, right? Not just in terms of people wanting to leave this country, but with people wanting to claim back their power in ways that hurts them and hurts the community. So really grateful for Sir John for modeling leadership and not politics. And of course, and like he said, he even had this wonderful moment where he just simply said, I'm not always right. And I wasn't always right. And I fully take responsibility for the things that I haven't gotten right. Jamel, how that made me feel when he said that helped me to understand I can't remember the last time a leader has really said that and meant it. Like, hey guys, we messed up. Sorry, but we will fix it. And then I'll end on this note. So I can, education reform is my thing. I love education. And he made this point about the government doing things, but not reporting on it afterwards transparently. So with education reform right now, right, we apparently have 2 primary schools that have transitioned to the new parish primary school model, Purvis and Francis Patton. To date, Jamel, we haven't seen anything as the public in terms of what's been designed at these schools curricularly, and how this is being reflected infrastructurally, because this isn't the entire reason why we're transitioning to this new model. These schools have opened. I have asked questions. I received a bit of information personally on the sort of teaching, the instructional models that have been co-designed, but it wasn't a full report. And we have spent millions of dollars on a foreign consultant innovation unit. It's their responsibility to produce this deliverable, and we've seen nothing. That's politics. That's not leadership. So that's lots of thoughts, sorry. And I could continue, but I'm gonna stop. You're muted, Mel.
Yeah, I echo what you said, Raj. I actually turn my mic down to make sure I don't interrupt and I listen. So just want to give people that I don't want to sound like I'm cutting anyone off. I know how that can come across. But I echo what you said, Rajay. But I'm going to start with the brain drain. Now, I've said many times, and I try to be respectful in saying it, but I know how easily my tone can offend. But if we're honest, if every last one of us in this conversation right now is honest, we don't have many intellectuals in our political space today. And I'm not just talking about intelligent people as business people, but I'm even talking about activists. I'm talking about the Dr. E.F. Gordons that we were taught about, the L. Frederick Wades we were taught about,
Paulu.
Dame Lewis Browns, the Paulo Camarafagos, right? We don't see those kind of people involved. So it's not just when we're saying brain drain, it's like we don't see a suit and tie looking, executive. We don't see the kind of people that built for the progress that we were supposed to be enjoying. What we see is people who could not create industry or have successful careers outside of politics, getting into politics for a way of life to make money. I said when Sir John spoke about, international businesses not allowing their people to get into politics. Well, last year I believe it's a year to the day, we had an IB executive, Curtis Dickinson, challenging for the leadership of the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party and in turn the country. There's only one reason, in my opinion, that Curtis Dickinson didn't win that. And it was because of selfishness. selfishness within that party, like, well, he's going to take away this from me. He's going to take that from us. Not that he would bring better leadership and actually give us the opportunity to do more for ourselves. Not that he would make decisions that were in the best interest for the country, but no, it was about what you believed he would have taken from you. Because if anyone who voted for David Burt is honest and looked into a mirror, I guarantee you they couldn't say, David Burt's the best person to lead Bermuda, at least out of him and Curtis Dickinson. I guarantee you, if you can look in a mirror, say that and believe it, then you are probably one of the best liars the world has ever seen. So
there are so many people
who get into space, but they've been chased out. They haven't been welcomed today. Because we've got people who will do almost any and everything to hold on to the one jobs and jobs, in case of many, that they've been able to secure. I want to also touch on, the foreigners, like many companies and people shipping their money outside of Bermuda. Bermudians have a role to play in their economy. We have a huge role to play in the economy. Part of that is ensuring that when that Black Bermudian CEO is in position, you put what we spoke about earlier this week, reach back down and bring somebody up. There are too many Black CEOs in Bermuda who don't do enough to embrace their community. Remember just yesterday we spoke about, not that part of Devonshire, not that kind of Black person, not that Bermudian. We have created such a divisive community amongst ourselves that it's hurting us. We have got to change that. You mentioned transparency in education, Roger. Nothing that this administration does today seems like the interests of the people are the priority. Everything this administration does today is in the interest of benefiting them. Every last thing. How does it benefit us first? And then how does it benefit the people?
Yep, it's self-preservation. It's not, and I think a lot of people might say that that's an excessive statement, like that's overstating it. But if anybody's like you said, truly honest and truly self-reflective, and if you look at it for 2 seconds, you can easily go, this is self-serving.
Absolutely.
This is how can we preserve ourselves first and foremost, and then everything else is secondary to that. That's obvious. And if anybody tries to argue against that point, you're being disingenuous.
Yeah, it is. So, honestly, I really hope that people took something away from the conversation. I hope that we share it. Look, I'm no genius. I don't claim to be an intellectual, but not much of what was said is rocket science. All we have to do as a people is wake up. And once we wake up, we have to do something. Raj, you've got some daily inspiration to send everyone on their way?
I do. I actually have 2. The first one is from Sir John, something that he said in our conversation. Let's learn to listen so that we can listen to learn. And the second one is actually from MP Curtis Dickinson. He said this one time and it stuck with me. He said, we need to remember who we work for.
That's simple. That's your fishery. Send foods, inspiration, daily inspiration. Folks, please don't forget to subscribe on our website, thedailyhour.com. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House, Lindo's, and People's Pharmacy for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you on Monday. He's Roger Danbrook. I'm Jamal Hartman. Please do make it a safe and a great weekend. We are is out. Peace.